Good morning, everybody. Welcome to our Wednesday Naples MUG meeting, September 23rd. Welcome to all of our members from all over the world, and we do have members from all over the world. We have them from London and Suffolk, England, Melbourne and Sydney, Australia, and throughout the United States, as you can see listed here. We welcome all of you. We will continue to handle our meetings this way. There doesn't seem to be an end to the virus, and so business will continue as usual. On September the 2nd, we started our new meeting schedule. We meet every week from 11:30 a.m. to 12:45 p.m. You must be a member to join a Zoom meeting. I want to congratulate our new 42 new Naples MUG user group members for taking advantage of our special membership promotion, which ends on November 1st. We have 7 more to go to get to the goal of 50. So whatever you can do to try to encourage a friend or a neighbor to join the group, please do. We have announced our classes for 2021, which take place in January, February, and March. And registration for our classes will start on November 1st. And here is a list of the classes. This will be part of the video that you will have within 2 to 3 days after this meeting. Today's presenter is Glenn Fleishman. I've sent out at least 3 or 4 notices on the meeting and on Glenn, and he'll be with us in just a couple seconds, but we welcome Glenn. He's going to cover the essentials of Zoom and all the excitement that's taking place in the Zoom world. Next week, we will have Jeff Carlson, who will be talking about some photographic software called Luminar 4, a very exciting piece. It's a standalone. It works with Adobe and Apple products as a plugin. And it's not a subscription. You pay once and you own it forever. And Jeff will be with us next week to talk about it. On October the 7th, we will be back with Marty. I'm not sure. Here's Marty. I want you to know him by both of his faces. Because I utilize either one based on the meeting. And of course, please complete the survey after the meeting, and you'll have it within a couple hours. And I appreciate the fact that you do. And we look forward to this meeting. And Glenn, it's all yours. Thank you very much for being with us.
Great. Well, thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. And I love to see a robust Mac user group. This is so exciting. I used to be part of one, go to meetings in Seattle, and it sort of faded away because people kind of spread out. And so there, if there's anything good about being isolated, is that people are getting back together online, and it is great to see everybody. It's just really, it's exciting to see a robust community interested in this, and meeting weekly, and it is great. So what I thought I'd talk about today is I have spent months writing and working with Zoom, and my plan today is not to do a formal presentation with bullet points, but to actually show you a number of Zoom presentation tools. And I know that sounds very business oriented, and I know some of you are doing business, and but there's a lot of social and family aspects of it as well. I've been testing some of these out too, as I'm sure many of you have, where you're trying to reach out to family and be able to talk to them through Zoom and other software. But I'm focusing on Zoom, although some of the tools will work in if you for some reason are using anything else. I know that Zoom is kind of the best personal tool because it's got such a generous tier of features available in the free tier. I have the cheapest paid subscription, which is I think $15 a month, and it offers even more, and that's been useful for me in a lot of circumstances as well. But you know, there's Blue Jeans, and there's Google Meet, and there's all these other things, but I tend to stick to Zoom because it's easy to get people to use. It's easy to, you know, get someone just to open it up in a browser without installing software, or you don't have to mention the name Google or Microsoft to them, which I know some people get nervous hearing. So anyway, Zoom seems to be the default. And before I start too, I should point out, I know that George sent this out in links as well. I wrote a book called Take Control of Zoom Essentials. And the idea is, again, it's kind of a book. If you're already using Zoom, it's a book you can give somebody else. It's 40 pages. It's entirely free, and it's, as our notion was, we kept hearing from people who just wanted the basics. I mean, I have a 200-page Zoom book, which you are welcome to as well. And there's a mug discount for the 200-page book. And if you need that much detail, it's there. But the 40-page free book is really designed both if you're feeling frustrated with some of Zoom's basic features, and it's very reasonable that you would be, because Zoom has a lot of little quirks that they're still ironing out, or if you have people you're trying to get on board to Zoom and you want to figure out how to give them just enough information to get started, and you don't want to walk them through every single step, then this is a good book for them as well. So again, we're just trying to help people out, and having written a 200-page book, a 40-page kind of quick start, it was really easy to put together, and I appreciate anybody who wants to take a look at that. So what I found, especially in the early days, when the pandemic started and everyone was thrown into Zoom, there was a lot of mechanics folks were trying to work out. But as time went on, it really turned into, how do I share my screen? How do I share images? How do I share a presentation? How do I do something that's effective? And keep myself in the picture is kind of a term I've wound up using, is because a lot of folks wound up, again, both in business and personal situations, where they just don't want to put an images filling the whole screen with Zoom screen sharing. And because then they're not in that picture, and all everyone else is seeing is this big screen, often of text or a single photo. And so what's fun is, a lot of tools have developed, including within Zoom, that help you keep the personal in this, you know, advanced telecommunications tool, where you can keep yourself in there and people can see you. So I thought I'd walk through a few options, but I wanted to start, before I get into the rest of it. I made up a list of my top 5 Zoom tips that work for everybody. And since you all are clearly experienced Zoom users, since you're all in here and have named yourself and are part of these regular meetings, you may not need any of these, but if you don't know them, they're also great to pass on. And the number one tip that I give out, I learned it, and every time I tell people, even people who've been using Zoom for months, they get excited, is, if you're on a desktop copy of Zoom, if you mute yourself, as I will now, if you hold down the space bar, while you're holding down the space bar with Zoom in the front, it unmutes you. So anyway, I love this tip, is the space bar is your mute unmute. So then you can be muted all the time. You don't actually have background noise coming in, or the moderator has muted you for that reason. Hold down the space bar and you unmute, you talk, and release it. It's kind of a push to talk thing. And excuse me, this has been the thing that always gets people excited, because it, instead of sitting there and trying to click that little target over and over whenever you want to speak, and forgetting, having your lips move and nothing come out, it's great. Number 2 tip is to turn off notifications when you're using Zoom. And, you know, whatever different device, since we're all Apple users here, it's a little easier. You can turn on Do Not Disturb in iOS or iPadOS, and you can use the notifications tab. You can click that notifications icon in the upper right corner on a Macintosh screen and click Do Not Disturb, and then you don't have notifications pouring in and distracting you while the meeting's going on, and you just turn them back on when you're over. Excuse me. Of course, I've got my Tidbits mug. You can see how loved this mug is. It's been worn out over the years. I've had it for so long. Number 3 tip is, consider getting a physical green screen, which I know sounds silly. I mean, everyone, you know, the virtual one works actually pretty well in Zoom. But if you're doing presentations regularly, or you're trying, as I might be, to hide my background, which is a little messy, it's a little chaotic. I'm working out of a basement, so you know, I have. If I turn it off, you can see I just have an old polar fleece blanket, the sheet that my one of my kids got to do YouTube years ago. he stopped doing YouTube. So what do I have now? I've got my own green screen. But it helps to reduce the visual clutter. I could have a more neutral background behind me. But again, I mean, even for family and social circumstances, I think sometimes you may not want to have everything spread out. I see a lot of you are using virtual backgrounds, and Zoom's algorithm for finding your outline is very good even without one. But if you add, this color, if for some reason you're in a space and you're just trying to block it out, and then you want a picture portrayed on it, it's, I think, a really great and surprisingly simple option. Just hang up a screen. Uh, the other is, if you feel like you're not being lit well on screen, so your face, the coloring on your face is off and you want to be seen better. I'm looking around, this is a great looking crowd. You're actually so well lit, I can see everybody's face. So you're all actually, you're ahead of the game, but you can get these tiny ring lights that can mount on top of a laptop. They're just like a little light. I don't have mine sitting here, USB powered often, or have a battery built in, and they just cast a little bit of light forward on your face and it makes your features a little more visible. And the other, finally, is my top five, my fifth tip is, if you're sharing your screen or your browser in Zoom, create a new window. Don't use a browser with tabs in it, because your tabs often have the titles of other windows in them, right? So this has been embarrassing for some people, and you don't want to have fire all employees or I hate Bill on the tab in the background that someone can see because they're seeing your whole browser. Most of us aren't doing something like that, I'm sure, but just to avoid any confusion with other activities you're engaged in, open a new window. Don't just add a tab to show something if you're sharing your browser in Zoom. So those are my general tips. And because I found, I've been talking to folks about that for now, let's say for months. These are the things that people seem to glom onto the most as being immediately useful. I mean, I talk a lot about location because, when you're presenting yourself, you want to put your best face forward, and some of it is, using the green screen or lighting yourself a little better, because with our face, I can only do so much with my voice. I can communicate with it, but with our face being such a communication tool now, being able to see someone's face clearly becomes a really important part of our interactions with other people. So um, uh, my emphasis there is not that you have to look a particular way, but that people can see your face clearly and not be distracted by background. Well, I thought I'd move into the presentation tools. So I'm going to bring up a few things first. So in Zoom, one of the options that you have is to share screen, and depending on the meeting you're in. So in this one, it's locked down securely, so only the the host and co-hosts can share screens or give people permission to share their screen. Let me open up. Oops, sorry, I need to open up a few images in preview, and but there's a lot of options. It's very hard, as you may have found out, if you want to demonstrate something in Zoom while you're using Zoom. So I made screen captures to make this a little easier. And let me just hide. Oops, I'm sorry, I should have had this set up. I'll hide the background bar. So um, this is the basic share screen window in Zoom, and it shows a lot of options. So you can take individual windows in Zoom and share them. You can take the entire desktop. I've got two monitors. You can plug in your iPhone or iPad via cable, or set it up with AirPlay and then share the cameras from that device, or sorry, share the screen, which can include the cameras from that device. So that gives you an external camera. So that's one set of options. And then there's also an advanced tab, which I'll be using a lot today, but I just wanted you to know where it's at, is Slides as virtual background. This is a beta feature, and they released it sometime in the summer, so you have to update your Zoom desktop client, your Mac client. Make sure you have a later version than, I think, 5.1. So whatever's out now, I think, is 5.3.0, just came out a couple days ago. If you want to either share slides this way or see the presentation done correctly, you have to have this later version because it's added. It's a little funky. I was testing it out with George and Eckhart the other day and couldn't get a couple features to work on my iMac, but I also have a MacBook and they work there. So I'll demonstrate them. That's why I'm logged in twice to this meeting, so I can demonstrate this Zoom feature. So I'll show that in a moment. I'm going to stop sharing that. But so those are the screens. Share screen lets you select from a lot of different things. You can have an image open, a window open. You can have one thing actually I'd like to show. I'm going to show you, it's a new feature that I only became aware of. It came out in July in Keynote. And actually, can I do this is a good, you could physically raise your hand. Are you Keynote users? Do a lot of people use Keynote for presentations and sharing? Oh, good. Yeah. So you may have missed this. I certainly did. I didn't notice it till August. I was trying to test something out. Keynote added an option, which is play slideshow in window. And this has been in PowerPoint for a long time. But you know how in Keynote, if you want to do a presentation, if you want any interactivity or you want the presenter tools, it fills your screen. Now you can have just the presentation part with all, any builds or anything else you do that's fancy, or just the plain slides that way. So then this works more effectively with Zoom. I actually think it's one of the reasons Apple added this option is because of that. And so if I go to, whoops, I have to be showing it. Hold on, excuse me 1 second. I have a Keynote presentation open in that view, and then I can go to share screen in Zoom. I can select that, and now I can show you the, the slides, which is great, but I haven't lost control of my desktop. I'm not in like that strange full screen Keynote mode. I'm still in my normal desktop mode, and Keynote is showing this presentation just in a window. So I can go back to Zoom. I can have other notes on screen, even as I, control this in advanced slides and use Zoom's share window feature. So the way you access this in Keynote is it's just the play menu, and then play slideshow in window. And you can add that to the toolbar if you customize the toolbar in Keynote. So it's readily available, which I think is great. It's a big help for uh, having more control over your Mac environment, especially if you have a single screen. If you have two, I know the Keynote setup for full screen works better, but if you have a single window and you want to manage multiple things at the same time, Play Slideshow window is a great addition to Keynote. And if you're a PowerPoint user, PowerPoint has a presenter mode where you can say present in window. It's a little buried. You have to go into presenter options and click. There's 3 different presenting modes, and one of them is show in window. If you select that, you get the same effect. And again, so I've started using this all the time, even though I've got a 2-window setup on my main computer. I just like the control of it better. One more tip, if you want, you can link Keynote in iOS or iPadOS. You can use the Keynote app there as a remote control for your Mac copy of Keynote. So if you link your 2 copies of Keynote, you can be using Zoom. I can be looking at a grid of people. I can have my slides running, and I can use my iPhone to advance slides or look at notes in my hand, and I can still maintain focus. I can still be looking at you all while this is going on, and that's part of it as well. Is you want to be interacting with people, seeing their faces. I can see all of you right now, and not be distracted by slides on another screen or someplace down and so forth. So it's all a tool to help you do that. So these are features that are, this is Keynote, this is Zoom, these are all built in and free. I want to show a new feature in Zoom, this beta feature, and let's see how it works. I think I'm going to, if you can, let's see, I know it works on this other machine. If I switch over to my secondary screen, that's called, I forget what I call myself, Glenn Fleishman Presenter, or GF Presenter, I will show slides as virtual background. And this is available to all Zoom subscribers. So you can be in a free account if you're hosting, or I'm sorry, as a host, you can be in a free account rather. You don't need a paid account, or you can be participating in a session that's run by a free account. So you don't need to pay extra for it. But what Zoom as feature, it slides as virtual background, takes a moment. What it does is you can then you choose that option in advanced screen sharing. You choose a PowerPoint or Keynote slide deck on your Mac, and then Zoom converts it within the program. It actually exports it from PowerPoint or Keynote as a PDF file. You don't have to deal with that. It does it all internally. It loads it into the Zoom application, and then you get this magic. Oops. Oh, it's not letting me do that. And of course, it's not letting me do that over here. That's funny. Maybe I have to join audio. I'll have to try it from another machine. Like I say, it's a beta feature. It should put a little picture. So I'm right now when I'm showing you slides, this is just within the Zoom app. So I'm not using an external app to show you slides, which is great enough. but it should also let me show myself on screen, and it's not. Now that's interesting. Okay, so um, let's see if I remove Spotlight. The joys of live beta. Let me try it on this other computer then. Hold on one second. I'm going to stop screen sharing there. Uh, oops. Beta software is always fun, but I was able to get this to work with PowerPoint on this machine. Oh, there we go. Okay, so I've just opened a PowerPoint presentation on the iMac that I'm using. Uh, and so it's opening PowerPoint, it's converting it. You see, as a presenter, I'm seeing preparing slides. So it takes a moment because it's actually doing this whole process. But then in a moment, as I vamp and tell you things, uh, Cheetah, I don't know, you said, how do you want to handle questions? If people have questions, this would be a great time while it's doing this. I can answer anything in the meantime, or
Well, I have a question.
yeah.
If you have any transitions on your slides, I'm sure that once you convert it to PDF, those transitions are gone. So are we assuming that uh, converting it to PDF just wipes everything away and you're
That's
just stuck with static images?
That's exactly right. This only works if you have a static deck. So no transitions, no movies, nothing like that. And now you can see. Okay, so here's the feature of the show. Now you can see me. I'm dancing behind in front of my slides, and
Mhm.
I know it seems a little ridiculous, but yeah, that's exactly it. You get a static PDF style deck that you can work with, and it's useful. I think if you prepared a slide deck of we got a bunch of my family together recently, and we were posting photos. And after the fact, I thought, oh, I wish I'd had a deck of photos. But then with me on the screen, oops, I got to do the left right thing. I could be pointing to something and saying, who's that dad? Who's that? Who's that? Who's that relative?
Mhm.
So there's some aspects, I can even move myself around the screen and say, no, wait, sorry, I got it's the other direction. Who's that? You got to reverse yourself as you do it. And you can unmirror it also, unmirror video. But,
So,
um, but
so,
it's, oh, sorry, go ahead.
so this is beta in Zoom right now?
It, in Zoom, share screen, advanced slides as virtual background. And so you can control, this is what I was trying to show on the other machine, is you can control slide advance is very primitive. It's just back and forward. So I can go,
Hmm.
advance a slide at a time kind of thing. And then you can hide yourself on screen. I can get rid of myself and not show up. Um, and resize myself if I'm too big, put myself in a tiny corner, make myself huge. But the idea is that you're as I was saying at the beginning, is it's a human face. You're actually on screen.
Right.
You're looking at people. You're interacting. So it's not just this, deadly dull slide deck um, of something like this. This is I know very exciting like this, but with me on the screen, it's much more engaging. But and it is too because I can see your face, you can see mine, and I think that helps a lot.
Okay.
So, oh, sorry,
We
go ahead.
do have we do have a question from Thomas
Oh,
Hopkins. So Thomas, could you please unmute yourself and ask your question?
Yes, it's actually a very basic question. When Zoom first came out, I signed up for an account and, just had a look at it. Now, the only time I use Zoom is when I go to the Naples Mug meeting. And Eckert has set it up with my calendar so that with one click and the password, I'm into the meeting. I never sign into Zoom when I do that. Okay, do I have two profiles, one for the Naples Mud Group and one for my home?
oh,
Oh,
that's. Oh,
go
oh,
ahead.
sorry.
Go ahead. No,
Oh,
you go ahead.
it's a good question. I think Zoom accounts are sort of optional, so you can so when you sign in that way because you've got the information, if you don't log in first, then it didn't create a different profile from you. You're sort of anonymous, so whatever information you provide is what you provide. Some accounts, in fact, I was talking to Eckhart about this because he's curious about making sure people don't get in the meeting who are disruptive. Zoom bombers, and you can, as a host, restrict access just to authorized users, or sorry, not authorized, but people who've authenticated, people who have set up an account. So it's an extra option, but you don't have two different profiles. At one level, when you just use the meeting ID and password and you connect without logging in, it's really just like you've walked into a room, but you haven't, Zoom doesn't store additional information about you beyond the meeting.
Okay, Thomas, did that answer your question?
Yes,
Okay,
thank you very much.
All
Oh,
right, thank you.
I also saw a question in the chat. I looked over there, and you can change settings in uh, Zoom, including virtual backgrounds when you're not, oh, I'm sorry, is there a way to change it when you're not in a meeting? Some Zoom settings you can only change in a meeting. In the mobile app, so iOS and iPadOS, you have certain settings that only can be changed. I think virtual background is still one of them. You change them in the app settings when you're not in a meeting, or sorry, when you're in a meeting, and you can say apply this to all future meetings. In the desktop version, most settings, I think pretty much all of them at this point, can be changed in settings even when you're not in an active meeting. So the mobile one is more limited that way for sure.
Okay. All right, no more
Uh,
questions.
Oh, and
Sheila,
Marty says he doesn't see me in the slides I'm
right.
looking at. Marty, that means you have an older version of the software installed. You need to have, you probably have 5.1 that came out a few months ago. And there's a version that came out, I think, in very early August. So if you haven't updated Zoom since early August, then I don't appear and you don't know what I'm talking about. What is this guy talking about? He's not on screen. It is actually the first time I did this a few weeks ago. People said, I don't see you. I know what's going on. I'm like, what's the matter? I'm like, oh, it's software versions. And they think I'm gaslighting them. I'm just claiming I'm on screen like the, like Oz. I'm sorry. Cheetah, I'm sorry. I interrupted you, I think.
Oh, no, you do have one more question from Mitch. Mitch, unmute yourself and ask your question, please.
Uh, yes, I was just going to report that I was on the old software, and that's why I was having difficulty logging in on my Mac this morning, and I updated when you mentioned that. And my question is Zoom planning, or is there a setting that automatically checks for updates, or do you always have to go in and do that yourself?
This is such a good question too, is I've had this discussion with a lot of people. Is Zoom actually claims that they give you an update notice when you launch the software and there's a new version. I don't have it happen. Does anybody get a notification about new software? You can raise your hand and physically, no?
I don't get it.
Yeah,
No.
so I think they have something broken with their update system and has been for months. So I go in manually and check because I'm writing about it every few times. Or if something's not working, I saw Zoom came out with an update 2 days ago with some better breakout room features, and I thought I don't think I have that version. I'm like, oh, sure enough, I didn't have 5.3.0 installed. So you are not alone. I think I don't know why they think this works. Zoom's used a lot in managed environments where an administrator is pushing updates out, or using some other system to inform people or get the update to show up. But for individual users, I think the system remains broken.
All right, we have one more question before we continue. Alan
Sure.
and Barbara, unmute yourself and then ask your question.
I have an old operating system, High Sierra. Does the Zoom upgrades work on High Sierra, or only the more modern operating systems?
I think that High Sierra is still supported. I think it'll still work with Zoom. They go back several versions. Some features may not work if you're trying to share slides, and some of that's dependent on the computer model you have. So slides as virtual background has very specific processor requirements, and you have to have, I mean, I can't even list them off, but if you try to use it, if you try to use a feature in Zoom, in fact, just with this new update from a couple days ago, it's supposed to tell you and say, you don't, your i7 whatever can't be used for slides as virtual background. So ostensibly you can participate and do everything, see everything, because everything being pushed to you, it's one of Zoom's cleverest elements, I think, is it's being pushed to you essentially as a stream of video. So it's only when you're hosting and trying to put something through Zoom that you might face some limits because of either operating system version or the capabilities of your Mac. And so I have a 2017 iMac, and I can see, for instance, one of the limits is in the gallery view. I think I can see up to 25 people on a screen, but if you have some super fast newer one, you could see up to 49 people on a screen, which is probably too many to take in even with a giant screen. But so there are specific limits, but I'd have to look it up, but I'm pretty sure it goes back, I think Zoom goes back 4 or 5 versions of Mac OS, because they're not doing anything that's too much tied into the operating system.
All right, thank you.
All right.
All right, go ahead, Glenn.
Oh, sure. So let me show you a couple of other so this is all within Zoom. These are all things you can do without leaving Zoom at all. There's three other things I want to show, well, at least two. Um, so the slides is virtual backgrounds. The idea is that you got to put yourself in the picture, right? In your and you have some limited control, but there's a new category of software that's coming out, some of which is free or relatively inexpensive, and it's called, the category is virtual cameras. So if I have a physical camera and it's either built into my Mac or I plug in a webcam via USB, I can select that. There's the video menu in Zoom or in most apps in Mac OS. I can choose camera input and just select it. Like right now I've got actually I've got an external Logitech camera I'm working with you on, looking at you on right now, and I could slide that over. It actually covers my FaceTime. I could switch to FaceTime and, just, it's a hardware camera. So we're seeing me in two different cameras. You can see the FaceTime is not as good as this Logitech. It's much brighter, crisper. So that's why I use it. But virtual cameras, what they do is they are software that pretends to be a physical camera. So to most or all of your software in a Mac, when you're running virtual camera software, you can select the virtual camera just like a physical object. And so you might say, well, that's great, but what would I do with it? And so then I will point you to a new piece of software called I think it's a terrible name. It's MMHMM. Maybe they will change it. But what you can do with that is you select it as a camera. So right now I'm in Zoom. From the video menu, I'm selecting the camera, and you see me, this looks like slides like virtual, as virtual background. It looks very similar, right? But if I can actually put myself into different rooms and backgrounds. So I can be showing you this, with virtual Tokyo behind me, sorry, virtual New York behind me. Let's see if I can make that smaller. There we go. And have these slides, I can have the slide presentation I'm doing in the background and talk over it. I can show you pictures or video and just drop them into this background. So this is third-party software. Right now it's in testing, it's free, and it's by invitation only, so they're spreading out slowly. You can also go to find the, because their name is so great, it's app, mmhmm.app is actually their domain, and you can sign up to get a beta version as they start releasing it out. But the idea of this is that it gives you, again, more control. It's a little bit fancier than the Zoom option. You can change more of the parameters, so I can have this background, which I can just swap out. I can have this is too distracting, I think. Sorry, I'll make everyone ill if we look at it. But you can have these, lightly undulating backgrounds that I guess look high tech. You could add your own images. You can have you can have these outdoor environments or whatever you like, just like you would with like many you're using with virtual backgrounds in Zoom. But then you can drop images, videos, or screen sharing. So right now I'm showing, these are images that are being dropped in. But I could also, as I was showing before, I could do, oops, I lost it. Slide sharing, there we go. I can do slide sharing, so I can take any or any app. I can select any app that's on my machine, including Zoom. I can be showing you Zoom as a window inside Zoom. I'm sorry, that's too much. But this is a live Zoom window, so if I wanted to demonstrate a feature in Zoom, I can actually do it within which is feeding itself into Zoom. And I know that's a little horrifying, but it actually works. May have to, it's some things don't show up. I'm trying to, if I just click the share slide feature, but it's not showing up in the window because some things in Zoom don't show up as application windows. But it's an interesting tool. So because again, it gets you in the picture, you can see yourself, people can see you while you're talking, and then you can be showing items on screen, all kinds of assets, so media assets or movies. And once again, I know there's a lot of business implications for this, and I've talked to folks using it in business, but I love this for the social and family aspect, is just being able to bring up pictures of your family and show them there, and it not be this sterile environment, not be full screen and you're not in it.
Glenn-
Oh, sorry, yeah.
Yeah, Glenn.
Yeah.
I'm also testing this software.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, and I found that I cannot get it to connect with my external camera. I have
Oh.
a Canon GL2, which is an older model, but it's
Mm-hmm.
still a great camera that I don't want to get rid of. And it will the app will connect with FaceTime fine, but it will not connect with this external camera. Have you
Oh,
come
that's a
across
bummer.
any issues like that?
No, I'm just using the Logitech and the built-in camera, and I'm not surprised because I think this is a small company, and hopefully, I mean, I think you should write them. I hope you've written them.
Oh, I have.
And
We have.
good,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
figured. But yeah, I mean, I hope they'll add more compatibility because, right, in this case, I'm feeding a physical camera into and then is compositing together multiple sources and feeding it out as a virtual camera into Zoom. It's really it's a workflow situation. And I've got the green screen. So again, in this case, you can see the border. If I enlarge myself here, the border is very good. It's very crisp.
Hmm.
It moves with me, but it also can do the algorithmic thing where, just like in Zoom, where it can automatically figure out your background and subtract it from you, so you don't have to have a green screen to work with it. Um, but it's a it's another neat tool, and there's a more complicated tool that I won't show that is so hasn't said its pricing yet. There's a tool called OBS, or Open Broadcast System, I think is what it stands for, and it is used a lot by gamers who do streaming online or showing themselves playing games, and which I'm told by my children is very popular. There's billions of hours of people watching this every year. So OBS is open source software. It is extremely complicated to use, and I only recommend it to experts. I'm not using it, but it lets you bring in multiple video sources and screen sharing and images and audio. So if you're trying to do something sophisticated, like a studio environment, it's great, but it's overkill because for most of us, at most, we want what you're seeing right now. Somebody on screen waving, a nice background that we can choose, and then the thing we're trying to share with other people and show. So is a really neat tool if you're doing, like I say, it's family, business, social, user group presentation. I think I didn't use it today because I'm showing the tools off, but if I were doing a more conventional presentation, I'd be using to be able to drop between things like, this is a image of something and a slideshow I'm doing and calling out specific images. I can just click to go through that instead of where in Zoom I've got to be selecting from locations or opening things up or prepping programs to be set. So I really like this as a presentation option. There's one other tool I'm going to show too. I'll make sure I'm still set up with it. I think so. Oh, I'm sorry. Somebody has a question there too.
Scott
Okay, there's
Silver,
a
can
comment
you
as well.
unmute yourself and ask your question?
Yes, I pushed the space bar to unmute myself. As a participant in a meeting in the active speaker view, Glenn, one can adjust the vertical slider to make the images larger and smaller on each side of the screen.
Mm-hmm.
My question is, as a host, I've not been able to do that. So that if I'm sharing my screen and I have slides that I'm showing or any other information, I can only enlarge the thumbnail to maybe a fifth or a quarter of the screen.
I'm sorry, so when you're viewing as a host.
Yes.
Oh, now that's interesting. The option should probably be in the view menu, which changed recently. You may need to disable side-by-side view, so like, this is one of these Zoom things. This is why I wrote a 200-page book as well as a 40-page book. In the 200-page book, there's 7 pages on this, I think. Zoom hides its view settings in multiple places. So in there's a slightly newer version, I think, that came out a few weeks ago that changed the view menu. So if you hover on your Mac screen, you'll see a view menu, or there's an icon in the upper right corner of the screen that lets you switch between gallery and active speaker. So that's the set of options you see. But when you're presenting, one of the options I believe that kicks in, and it's also as a viewer, you have to go to Zoom's preferences. And in preferences I've got to find it too. In preferences in share screen, there's an option that's side-by-side mode, and you can disable that. So if you disable side-by-side, so you uncheck it in settings, share screen, side-by-side mode. If you uncheck that, then that actually does affect your view, and there's no way to do it within, they may have added it in the latest version, but there used to be no way to do it while you're in a meeting from that button. You have to go to settings to turn that view on and off. That might help. I'm trying to think if, let me do that right now. I'm just going to share an
I've,
image again.
I've,
Let me
I've
find
tried it, and I don't think it solved the problem.
let's see. Yeah, I don't think if you're presenting, you're sharing a screen. Yeah, see, this is one of the reasons. Again, I don't think that'll work. This is one of the reasons why I like these third-party tools that let you control from another app, because then you're not subject to Zoom's limitations. You're when I use here, I'll switch back very quickly to when I'm using all of these options are available to me and controllable within and I'm just a video stream into Zoom. So Zoom doesn't exercise any control. So I have access to all the different view features as a normal participant in Zoom. I'm not switched into a special screen sharing view mode. And that makes it easier for me, I feel like, to use Zoom because I'm not limited by Zoom's options.
Can you do what I asked using Can you enlarge the thumbnail of the speaker
So that you could, for you to see, not just for other people to see.
or for your participants to see as well?
Well, it's tricky. Your participants can only view what they choose to view. Zoom is kind of ecumenical in that way. When you start sharing slides, by default, it takes over their screen. It puts them into full screen mode. So they should see what you're doing in full screen. And whatever you're showing should appear like a one-to-one. So if you're, it may be that the screen you're sharing, you may need to make that larger on your end before you share. So the window itself may need to be bigger. Yeah, I'm not sure I have a solution for you as you describe that, because I think you can also, as a host, you can spotlight a screen so that always shows up for all the participants. They see that as their first screen, or in active speaker mode, they see it large. No, I don't know if I have an exact answer for that.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
So the one other thing I wanted to show was a tool called Camo, and oops, let's see if it'll work. Is it coming up? May not be happy. Oops, let's see here. 1 second. Okay. There we go. Now I'm back. So I know this looks, I'm tipped down. So what the Camo is, I'll share the screen in a second so you can see it. I'm now using an external, here, I'll crouch because I've got it. It's in a position I can't get to as easily. I've got an iPhone mounted on top of my computer, and I'm using my iPhone as an external camera, as a webcam. So Camo is software. You run an app on your iPhone or iPad, and then you run studio software on your Mac. And if you don't have a webcam that you like, if your built-in one isn't high enough quality, and if you don't want to purchase one, the Camo software lets you essentially turn your iPhone into a camera source. So let me switch out of that, or actually I can show you. I can show you my setup. So this is, we'll turn it around. Whoops. No, I'm sorry, we're going to do a dizzying thing, but I've got a mount on top of my computer, so I can put the camera there, and then the software, the software, I'll do a screen share so you can see that better. That shows up in that position. But the idea is that then I have, sorry, I just unlocked it by accident. Then I have the way, and in this case, I've still got to adjust this thing. I've got a mount that works really well, but it's hard to adjust exactly its angle. So I've got to, keep unlocking the phone. I've got to adjust that. But anyway, it's if you don't have a webcam you like, Camo is an option for that. It has a so I don't have that in the ideal location. I'm going to switch back to my main camera. I can show you the software, what it looks like. So this is the Camo software, and it gives you control over all these options where you can choose among multiple phones or devices that are attached. You can choose whether you want the front or back camera, resolution. You can zoom in and just use a detail of the camera. You can control focus, all these options, brightness and so forth. So the idea is that it gives you essentially like a photo studio for your iPhone that is a camera you plug into Zoom. And it's a popular option right now, or it's an option that people consider because they don't have, you don't necessarily if you want to buy a Logitech camera right now, they're not available, and it's hard to get a webcam. So if you're feeling frustrated by your built-in, if you've got an Apple device with a built-in, I'm sorry, a Mac with a built-in camera, and those FaceTime cameras are not terrific, then this is a way to go around it. So I've got the paid version. It's $40 a year to get all the features, and they keep adding. But the free version is actually great. It works. It just turns your camera, or sorry, just turns your phone into a camera. It only lets you use 720p resolution, which is still much higher quality pass through this way than the built-in FaceTime cameras. Almost all of the Macs that are out there. So it's, again, it's just another, oops, I'm sorry, I've tipped my Mac down. It's just another way to be able to produce a better image of yourself if that's what you're looking for without having to invest in additional hardware.
Okay, we have a question, if you
yeah.
want to take a question.
Yeah,
Frank, can
absolutely.
you please unmute yourself and ask your question?
Oh, still muted.
Yeah. Frank?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I didn't hear you say Frank. Yes, Glenn, I am using an iMac with a built-in camera. Is there a way to zoom in and out other than making a display larger or smaller by pressing Option Command plus or minus?
There is not. This is where you might, so I don't want to tempt you too much, but if you want to work through the OBS software, let me find the URL for that. It's a perfect use of it. And like I say, it's I don't know, it's open source software, so it has every feature. That's the good news. It's open source software, so it has every feature. That's the bad news. It's, you have to kind of wrestle with the fact that it's a kitchen sink, but it's OBS, B like boy, obsproject.com, and they have a free, it's all free. It's open source and freeware. You can download the software for the Mac, and then you have to find a separate virtual camera plugin, which you have to search for OBS virtual camera, install that, which is not that big a deal either, really. That's, again, this is why I wrote a 200-page book, because it's documented in the book a little bit. But the idea is then with OBS, you can actually take any video source and resize it. So if you wanted to zoom in, and you can make these changes live too. So you create an OBS screen, you take your iMac camera as your input, you size it the way you want, and then the output from OBS becomes the camera you select in Zoom. And then if you want to change the zoom on the camera, you go to the OBS screen. And again, it's just like I was showing you with, here, I'll show you again, just, where, I can just do this. I mean, frankly, you could use, you don't have to have a background. I can, you could use for this, where I can zoom in and show myself in any way I want here, and I could set, a neutral background or my own image. So it is, I mean, right now, eventually it's going to have a price tag attached. Right now it's free and it's in beta. So if you get in the beta, you could use it and then, resize yourself however small or large you would like to be. It's an option and it's very simple. But so OBS is kind of it's not, I wouldn't say a pro tool, but it's more like, it's a lot more work to get what you want out of it, but it would do exactly what you want.
Thank you.
Yes, it's involved. I tried OBS and I threw that kitchen sink away.
I got something set up and was like, all right, I could do this if I had a lot of time. I mean, it's really meant for people doing studio sort of production. And it's free. The alternative is Ecamm, which some of you may know. They make recording software and some other things. They have Ecamm Live, which is a professional grade, like live broadcast studio software you can run on your Mac. And it's really amazing. And it's, I think, $15 or $30 a month, depending on the flavor. But again, and it's very easy to use. Or I'd say relatively easy to use compared to OBS, but Ecamm Live is expensive because it's got the monthly subscription, and it's, again, overkill. So that's why is a very interesting option from that standpoint. Or if you use Camo, that's, I'm trying to remember the free version. Let me look. I'm sorry, Frank, I should have said the free version of Camo, then you're not using your built-in camera. The free version, see, I can't remember because I've got the paid version active. You might be able to zoom in the free version, zoom and focus the camera, but you can only do it with your iPhone or iPad. You can't do it with the built-in camera as a source, so that may not be helpful in the end.
Okay. All right, Bill Neese, can you please ask your question?
Yeah. For those of us who are not as sophisticated and doesn't have the equipment for the occasional presentation.
Yeah.
Keynote seems to be the best solution to preparing a program, but we put Keynote on our screen, go to Zoom, and then we just click this green button down here below, and
Mm-hmm.
the host will then display the Keynote program.
Well, that's actually an excellent question, because, and that's actually something they should have in Zoom. They don't have a way in Zoom for the host to have a participant's material show up. They can give you permission to share. So,
No,
and then once you're given permission, then you'd have to select the keynote presentation.
I'm wanting the key. I'm wanting the host. I would be the host.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
Then I would use my Keynote presentation to, and I would hit the green button below here to turn it on, correct?
that's right. You click that, and then it comes up with a screen, which I can actually show you. Let me see here. Zoom does this tricky thing, so you can't actually show these screens. Oops, there we go. This is what you'd see when you click the green button for screen sharing. And it's again, this software was not designed for regular people. It's like, this is too much information, in my opinion. But what it lets you do is select entire desktops or windows. So you can see, if you look down 3 rows and 4 columns, it says Keynote Points PEC. So if I click that and then click share, that's my Keynote presentation, and then I'm sharing the Keynote presentation. So if I did that right now, it would look like this. So I've just now selected that Keynote presentation, which is what you're seeing. So it was really click the green button, select the window labeled Keynote, click share, and then I'm sharing the screen.
All right, thank you, Bill. All right, go ahead, Glenn.
Oops, there we go. Somebody had a question I saw. Oh, webcam settings. I don't know that app. I'm gonna have to try that out. For this was James Cutler suggested it for a USB webcam. Should work for the built-in webcam. I want to check that out because I don't know that software. I was looking for. There's some older software that's been out there for a while that people were starting to glom onto for virtual camera stuff, and it wasn't totally up to date. And then these new solutions have come out. But so try webcam settings. I'm going to go take a look at that too and see if that meets it. And Victoria mentioned is invite only. I have. What do I have? I have 5 invitations a day. So if maybe you should email George if you want a copy of you want to be invited to the beta, and I could send out 5 emails a day for the next however many days for however many people want it. So if George, if that's okay, they can email you.
That's fine.
Great.
Is it
So ask
is it
George if you want a beta. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to ask you, you were going to send me one, but I haven't received it yet.
Oh, check your spam filter because I sent it yesterday or Monday.
Okay. Okay.
So if it didn't come through, I can send it again, but take a look and see if it's there.
Okay, I will.
It's going to look weird. Is going to go to spam. You know it is.
I received yesterday. I received my invitation. It came right away.
Oh, good. Okay. Yeah, they replenish it every day. So if 50 of you want it, I'll just take 10 days to send out 5 invitations a day, and I'll send them out because why not? If you'd like it, it's fun to play around with. I mean, it is, it's the most ridiculous. To me, it's sort of fun because this is the most ridiculous thing in the world where, oops, oh shoot, I hit the wrong button. It's the most ridiculous thing in the world where you can do, I don't know, you can make yourself small. I mean, it's just sort of hilarious. And then you can have, this undulating patterns in the background. And oh, this is actually a good point is I didn't turn off, I have to turn off virtual backgrounds in, there we go. Because otherwise Zoom will try to remove part of the background. So this is all, but you can have these ridiculous undulating backgrounds and ripple effects and whatever. So some of it's too much clearly, but it's a hoot. It's a nice change of pace. So there is that. So that is all I had prepared to show, but I'm happy to answer more questions, or I don't know if we're at the end of your normal meeting time or how that works.
All right, James Corsica, can you please unmute yourself and ask a question?
Yes, thanks. Glenn, when you showed that complex share screen,
Yeah.
one of the choices was whiteboard. I do occasional
yeah.
online math tutoring, and I'm wondering if that's a tool that would make my tutoring easier. What
Well,
is whiteboard?
I will just bring it up here, and it's a little primitive. You know, you can draw with a mouse. So there's the math lesson that I can do. You know, so I'm just using that kind of thing. But you can also click and enter text. So you could say, you know, so you can type stuff in and it's shared, and then someone else can mark up over it. You know, you can erase what you drew. So it's, I mean,
Unfortunately, drawing with a mouse is not very efficient for me. So
it's so
what
painful.
I typically do is I mirror my iPad on my
yeah.
computer and then share screen, and I use the Notes app to draw on with an Apple Pencil.
Oh, you can do that. I am, shoot, now I'm trying to remember. Yeah, drawing tools are available in Whiteboard from the iOS and iPad OS version of Zoom. So I'm trying to remember if you may have to start, this is, again, Zoom has certain limits. I can't remember at the moment if you can start a whiteboard session within the Zoom app. And I can't get at it because, of course, I'm logged into this session. So that's something to check. But I know if you start a whiteboard session from a desktop client, so you might have to be logged in on a Mac and on an iPad, you can start the whiteboard session and then other people can participate. So you could participate from your iPad as well. But I'm trying to remember, I think you can start a whiteboard screen sharing mode in the mobile client. So if so, then you can just use your Apple Pencil and draw like you do now.
On an iPad.
Yeah, I am pretty sure. I know you can draw in it. I just don't remember if you can, the most sophisticated screen sharing options are in the desktop software. But I do know you can draw, and I've tested it. You can draw on an iPad or iPhone. So there will be a way to set it up, but it might require using a computer and an iPad to do it.
Which is what I'm doing now.
Oh, okay. Oh, then yeah, then that's actually really feasible. So you might have to be logged in. You start a Zoom session and you're logged in via your computer to the session. You click share screen. You select whiteboard. You click share, and then on the iPad you can switch over to that, and you can draw as a participant, even if the iPad didn't start the meeting. It can still be drawing in there.
Uh-huh.
You
Okay.
have a comment from Michael Slider related
Thank
to
you.
that. Michael, can you unmute yourself and respond?
Yes, in regards to using the whiteboard, if you use an iPad, you not only can use the pencil, but you can have interactive sessions between two people. So if you write on the whiteboard and someone wants to write something at the same time, they can on your whiteboard. So for teaching, it's a great experience.
And you can set it up so that each person's lines, I guess, are marked with their Zoom name too. So as they draw or add things, so you know who added it. You don't have to remember in a multi-person session.
So it's like graphic texting.
Exactly.
All right, Alan and Barbara, can you unmute yourself and ask your question, please?
Yes, I'm trying the space bar and it seems to be working.
Okay.
I keep coming back to High Sierra. Does this home software work on High Sierra?
I think it only works as far back as, I can check, but I think it's Mojave. I think it's only, you have to have 10.14 or later. I don't think they're going back further because of some of the video features.
Okay, as a general question about High Sierra, if you try and use some software that turns out doesn't work on High Sierra and you don't know it and you just install it and you have a High Sierra computer, will it simply not install or will it install and cause you a lot of trouble?
It won't cause any trouble. It'll just won't. I think there's some kind of check in the software. It may not let you install. The installer might block it, or if it does install when you run it, it'll simply say this is not compatible with this version of the operating system. But it won't install system level components that would cause you trouble because it'll stop itself before it did that. I can't think of any problems I've seen with people installing newer software and older systems. The only exception might be, no, that's the other way around. I was gonna say there's some audio stuff, like Rogue Amoeba uses with its audio hijack and its sound capture software, but that happens only when you're trying to use the older software on a newer version of Mac OS, but not the other way around. So I don't think you'll run into trouble. Either it won't install or it won't run, but it won't cause you problems with your Mac.
Thank you. That's a big help.
All right, Frank, can you unmute yourself and ask your question, please?
Yes, Glenn, I see that you're recording this session. What is the best way to save and play it as a generic video file?
Oh, the group is recording it, so to the cloud. I see a little cloud icon.
Whoever's recording it. Again, if you're a host.
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing is I think MPEG-4 has become the standard, and I still have .mov files, which is a whole complicated thing. Someone asked me, I write this column for Macworld called Mac 911, and I get questions from people who've using, the last several versions of Mac OS or iOS, and someone asked a question about they had a problem with playing a .mov file, and I learned something I probably should have known a long time ago, which is MOV. It's Apple's format. It's been their extension for QuickTime for years, but it's really a container file. It's not a movie format file, and I feel like I should have known that, but I don't do enough with video. Cheetah's nodding because Cheetah does a lot with video. I know that, and so even an MOV file could have MPEG-4, could have the H.264. It's the tediously long name that's become the standard for video, and it's part of the MPEG-4 standard. So that's really become, I think, the universal interchange. Apple introduced the new higher efficiency video format, which is 8.265 technically. So with newer Macs and newer devices, you can play this video format that's can be up to, I think, 40 to 60% more efficient use of space. But 8.264 MPEG-4 is, to my understanding, but again, I think Cheetah would have a better knowledge of that, is the thing that I always try to record to and distribute in, because it'll play on everything, it feels like, these days.
Yes, and even if you do have a .mov file, you can open it in QuickTime and export it out as a different file format. So there's so many options for you to get the file type that you need. Okay. You do have an interesting question in the chat. Could you read that at the very last question?
Oh yeah, streaming a video from a cloud service. Oh yeah. So this is, could you show a streaming video from one of the cloud services? I tried from OneDrive, did the authorization thing, but couldn't get any further. Let's find out. I don't know that I've gotten that to work either. Let me see if I can. I think I'm connected with Dropbox, so I need to find a video. Do I have to give it permission? Oh, I see. Yeah, all right, so let's see if I can find a, well, you all know, maybe you don't know this, you all know that I won 2 games of Jeopardy. I hope you realize this, back in 2012. So let's see if I can play this I'm playing this from Dropbox. Here we go. But it's showing it as a window, that's funny. Yeah, that's not, no, see, yeah, it's interesting. I thought it would show it as a video. I don't know, I have to say, I don't know if I've gotten this to work either, because yeah, when I do this, when I try to share a video from Dropbox, it's just streaming it from the website for me. I guess I could increase, if I do that. Yeah, I don't think it's got a great interface, so I have not gotten this to work the way one would expect either, which is that it would just be a video that filled the screen. So I'm with you. I'll have to look into this more. Excuse me.
I think they were saying that they couldn't get it to work at all.
Well, I just got to that page, but yeah, I don't know. It looked like it just opened a web page. I thought it would open the video. It doesn't look like it worked.
But does it not play the video?
Did you see, well, let's see, let me try this one more time. If I do, let's see, so I did this. Oh, I see, there's a pop-up window. Okay, hold on. Nope, that happened. yeah, what it lets me do, it lets me say share screen, but then, oh, there we go. Now it's working. It didn't do, but you're just seeing the screen, right?
We're seeing the screen and we see that it's in the Dropbox window and it's
Oh yeah, I guess I can go to
starting.
full screen. Oh yeah, so I'm playing it from a window, but what I'm doing is had to, uh, I had to full screen it to get it to show up.
Mhm.
So it's not ideal. It's not downloading the video to play it. It's playing it from a web page. So the quality is pretty low.
It's not too bad.
Yeah, I mean, what I would do instead is download the video locally, make a copy of it on my desktop, and then use share screen to share QuickTime Player, or you can also, let's see, can you select? Yeah, I would select, there's an option which is optimize screen share for video clip. Wait, I can show that. Hold on a second. This is the screen share thing. So if you look down in the corner here, you can optimize screen share for video clip. So you can select QuickTime, play it in full screen there, have this button checked, and also check share computer sound, and that'll play it locally, and then it should give you a much better performance than trying to play it from the cloud service. So that's what I'd recommend.
Okay, George, do you want to raise your hand and ask your question? Or do you want Glenn to read it from the chat?
No, Glenn, we have some problems at the beginning of every meeting with some people coming in with an email address or their first name, not their last name. Is there any easy way to resolve that?
Yes, if you go to the participants view as a member of a meeting, so in the desktop version, if you hover over the bottom of the screen, there's an option that says participants, and if you click that, it opens up a tab to the right, and it'll show your name at the top. And if you hover over your name, there's a more button, and if you click the more button, one of the options should be rename, but the host has to give permission for people to rename themselves, so you have to make sure that's set up in the account. I was made a co-host, so I can rename myself, and I can rename myself to, Glenn I. Fleishman, and now you'll see me as Glenn I. Fleishman on screen. If you're on a iOS or iPad OS, you can tap the More button in the lower right corner of the screen, tap Meeting Settings, and then I believe you can rename yourself from there, but I don't have that running at the moment, so I can't give you the step-by-step on that. But you can. So, but again, the host has to authorize people to change their names. It's if you're here, actually, I can do. I'll be tricksy here. I'm going to take a screen capture and then. Oops, sorry, hold on one second. There's a host command in the security tab when you're hosting a window or hosting a meeting. There's a security pop-down menu at the bottom of the screen in the desktop version, and if you click that, there's all of these security options, and one of them is, I will share that. One of them is rename yourself. So if you or sorry, let people rename themselves. So you can lock all these different features, but one is this. So if participants can rename themselves, then that option will appear wherever their name appears in the participants window. So there's participants view in the mobile client. I'm sorry, you have to go to the participants list there, or the participants list in the desktop client. You see your own name there, and you tap it in the mobile client, or you click the More button in the desktop client, and rename is an option, and then you can change your name. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
I'm sorry, I was figuring it out on the fly. I'd forgotten how the controls.
Glenn, I have an additional comment on that. First of all, we have enabled the renaming feature.
Ah, that's great.
That's no problem. Our problem is that we have about 70, 80 people joining in within a very few minutes, and some people show up in the waiting room not with their proper name. We had one example today, very fancy name. Somebody called himself iPhone 2. Now, I have no clue who is behind iPhone 2, and we need to verify that this person is really a member of our organization. We can communicate, as a host, I can communicate with the waiting room, but only one directional. So I can leave a message in the waiting room, please rename yourselves. but whether the people in the waiting room will actually listen to that message and do it, I don't know. So my problem is when I see a name like that, I assume it's a nice person, it's a member, so I will let that person in. But then we have to address that person and tell them, please do me the favor and rename yourself. And some people say they always sign in with their first name, and there's nothing they can do to change their first name to their full name. And maybe you can address the issue that before you even join the meeting, what you need to do to create a name that is really your proper name as a member of our organization.
Oh, sure. Yeah, because so when you join, if you have an account, if you're an authenticated user with Zoom, so you're logged in at the Zoom website. I mean, this is actually the trick, and it can make it easier. If you set up an account, you don't even have to be a host. You just set up an account at zoom.us. Once you've registered there, you can set all the parameters you want, including your full name. Then, as long as you're logged in the website when you start a Zoom meeting, when you join one, you know how Zoom will do that round trip. You click a URL, it opens the Zoom website, and then it says, can I open the Zoom software? Or you can use it in a browser in many cases. At that point, that name from your account gets picked up if you're logged in. If you're not, it will ask you to type in your name. It'll say, please, or should ask you to type in your name and say, what's your name? What's the meeting ID? Join. And so I think if you advise people in the instructions when you're sending out the note that, you could put a screen capture of it and say, please enter your full name here when you join the meeting. Otherwise, it may fill in. Again, I don't have the mobile client running right now. I can't see how it'll look to join the meeting, but I thought when you join, actually I can bring it up very quickly, but I thought when you join from Zoom in iOS that, yeah, so this is interesting. So I can hold it up is actually probably, it's reversed, isn't it? Or is it? No.
Yeah.
But so for me, it has my name listed below meeting ID. So I can type in the meeting ID and then my name looks like it's not editable. But if I tap it, I can edit and change my name before I tap join. So I think maybe having a couple of screen captures that show, with an arrow that says change your name here, or when you log in from the software or from the website, here's where you can set your name. That might be helpful as part of the meeting instructions. I hadn't thought about it. It'd be a great like simple PDF to put together too, like how to join Zoom with your correct name, no matter how you're joining.
Yeah, thank you.
It's an issue. My wife, we were doing a trivia thing with the family a few months ago, local science museum, and she joined from her Zoom client and it sent her email address as her login name. And she's like, she doesn't want her email address broadcast it was an open meeting and, there's 100 people in it and not like people are, necessarily going to be abusive or anything. It's a science, trivia contest, but it was still, she didn't want her email out there. And we were running around because Zoom didn't have a renaming option that was as easy to find. You had to go into a profile setting to make the change. And now you can do it at least within the software. So that's useful.
I do have a question before we wrap up. And you probably see this on your screen as well, Glenn, when I'm doing presentations on Zoom, these meetings, when someone joins in, it pops that message on the top of the screen. And I find it, as a presenter, I find it to be distracting. Is there a way that we can turn that off for presenters or co-hosts, but still see that someone is waiting to join?
I think there is not, of course, because why would you want that? I think there is not a host. Let me see, because this is again that thing about Zoom has Zoom puts things in lots of different places.
Right.
I think so. Host settings, most of them are controlled from the website. You have to log in with your host account address. Which I'm going to do right now while we're talking. And then, good, they added a CAPTCHA to logging in because CAPTCHAs are really great. It's very cutting edge. Thank you, Zoom. We'll deter all the machines in the audience. But then you can change personal settings from the website, and those often affect host what you see as a host and how you control a host. But I am trying to remember. I don't think there's a way to do, I don't think there's a way to have you suppress those messages because it assumes, yeah, that's right, I don't see it. It assumes that because you're the host that you want to see everything that's going on. But as the co-host, you might not want to be, or if you're a presenter. So I think it's one of those things. It's a good thing to send it as a feature request because they should improve it. But I don't believe you can disable any banners that come in. It used to be an option that it only showed them off to the side or would light up the buttons. And now I'm seeing exactly what you are. I'm getting that big banner across the top. And I don't remember seeing that as often before. It is very distracting. But yeah, unless you're presenting, so you're not seeing that Zoom screen, I don't think there's any way to prevent seeing them that I know of.
All right. I will be talking to you later if you ever find a way that goes away. Okay.
I will look for that as they keep, it's the funny part. I'm writing books about Zoom. If I can circle around to my plug, which is writing a big book about Zoom, which is now a 200-page book about Zoom, is every few weeks they come out with a new version. Like, we've just done blank. You're like, oh, I have to change 50 screen captures in the book to come up to date. But Zoom really is trying. They're listening to feedback, and they just added a feature. I know people in education, my kids' school system is using Microsoft Teams because it's much more authenticated and they have a license. And it's better supported for schools who are already paying for Microsoft products. But a friend of mine in education said, did you see this new feature in Zoom 5.3? They let people, in Zoom, you can do breakout rooms, so you can have a meeting and break folks into smaller groups where they only see each other, and as a host, you can move between those groups and participate. But it's great for conferences or classrooms and so forth. So they just added in, this many years in, an option where if the host allows it, you can choose what breakout group you go to. So if you're in a event where they're doing affinity groups, these people are talking about web cameras and these people are talking about DSLR shooting, you can choose which group you go to. And that sounds like a basic feature, but they're still getting themselves up to speed. And that's, so we're just going to keep watching more and more improvements come from Zoom. And half the things I told you today, I hope will be accurate in a month, but some will not.
Okay.
Glenn
All right, great.
I think Glenn and Sheeta, I believe I have an answer to Sheeta's personal problem.
Oh, good. What is it?
And then the answer is really, we make her a co-host, but she doesn't need, the only reason why we make her co-host, because only hosts and co-hosts can share a screen in ours, the way we set up the system. But I can change that system, and whenever Sheeta presents, I can allow everyone to use the share screen button, or I can give her special permission. Then she doesn't have to be a co-host, and then some of these disappear.
Oh, that's good.
That's the thought that how we could accommodate Sheeta.
So then you can share the screen, but you don't see any of the hosting messages because you're not actually a host. That's great. Yeah, that's probably the right thing.
Okay, great. All right, we are out of time. Glenn, I thank you very much. And
thank you all so much.
We'll see you later. And George, do you have anything you'd like to say?
Yes, Glenn, thank you very much. Outstanding meeting.
Oh, yes.
A lot of good comments during the meeting, and this was terrific. And please, everybody, fill out the survey when you get it within the next couple hours. And that's all I have to say. Thank you so much for coming, everybody. And Glenn, we really appreciate this meeting.
Thank you, Glenn.
Thanks, Glenn.
Thank you, Glenn.
Thank you very
You
much.
have to talk to a
Thank you so
two-time
much. It's so great.
Jeopardy
Thanks
winner.
So takecontrolbooks.com is where you can find the book. So
Thank
put
you,
it in
Glenn.
thank you. All right. Bye-bye, everybody.